vast amount of new information at this hearing. What, in your mind, were the answers you were able to give today that you never would have been able to give before the Friday announcement?
Well, the Camelot business plan was posted online Friday, post the award. We certainly answered every question that was asked of us, and the testifiers who were there, such as Camelot, and asked me for that matter, were able to answer freely, as well as we were able to respond to all questions from the other bidders during the bid process.
Can you discuss the review process? Does the Attorney General's office have to review this contract? Can they delegate that to the governors for the attorneys? How is this going to work?
There is a standard legal review process for such regulatory actions, and that standard review process, legal process, will follow any execution of the award. I'd like to answer.
Every Commonwealth contract, virtually every Commonwealth contract, has to go through an execution process, which includes the signature of the agency procuring the product or service, which would be the Department of Revenue. It has to be signed by the Secretary of Revenue, has to be signed by their Chief Counsel, has to be signed by our Office of General Counsel. Then it has to be approved by the Attorney General for form and legality. Then it comes back to the administration, to the Office of Comptroller Operations, and from there goes to the Department of Treasury.
So Kathleen Kane is going to have to review it.
Yes, sir.
And on that note, testimony from Diane Thompson, she said there's some slight complication here in the fact that you have a new Attorney General coming in. Do you believe that that is just solely for Ms. Kane to catch up, or is there some concern that she might not sign it?
No, we would hope the Attorney General would fulfill her responsibility for all contracts and review it for form and legality and move it to the next step.
Do you have any recourse if she balks?
The role of the Attorney General is to review it and approve it for form and legality. If it's not in its proper form or the Attorney General doesn't believe we have the legal authority, then those are issues that they would raise. We have no reason to believe that either one of those would be the case.
Well, the question of legal authority has been raised by numerous legislators in terms of the Keno aspect. So is that a concern that in this contract someone could challenge it and say that it's not legal?
I think someone already has challenged it, but we don't think it's an issue.
On the employees, so at some point, once the contract's executed, which I think I heard would be in July, after that, then the employees would be interviewed, and sometime during that transition year, they might get an offer saying, hey, would you like to come work for Camelot, or we're not going to have a role for you anymore at the lottery. Can you clarify that a little bit further?
Contract execution is when all the signatures are inked and we're going live. There's a 6-month transition period upon contract execution. The employee transition period begins at contract execution and goes through a year. So the employee transition period lasts longer than the actual transition period. So the intent would be that those positions would be identified early that should be transitioned early to best effect the private manager taking over, and then they would identify which employees ought to be interviewed who are in those classifications now, and some would probably be offered positions sooner than others. It all depends on how the lottery staff and the private manager would agree on that transition.
What can you tell us about the extent to which people are going to need to play the lottery for Camelot to reach their profit projections? They talk about people playing adults playing almost 50%. 50% of adults in the UK playing every week. What does it need to be in Pennsylvania? What have they told you?
I think this is a question better answered by Camelot, but their business plan is broad-based. It includes not only broaden the base of players for different games, but also includes increasing the play on terminal-based games where you have a higher margin. So, for example, you might need more players playing certain games than you would other games. Growing terminal-based games, you might not need as many. But that's and then you throw Keno into the mix and some other things. So it's a broad-based plan, and I don't know that we actually had a percentage, but it's different growth targets in different game areas was how the plan was built.
You still intend to sign the contract by Friday? Is that the target?
The governor will make that decision after today's hearing and sometime in the very near future.
Just to be clear, the Attorney General review occurs at what point?
After all the Commonwealth signatures are executed, then it goes to the Attorney General.
Is there a time limit then for the Attorney General's review, 30 days?
The Attorney General has 30 days to approve for form and legality.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what percentage will go to seniors? We're hearing that per dollar it might be less. Do we know?
No, per dollar, there is certainly no plan for it to be less. I'm going to turn that over to Secretary Duke, if you don't mind.
The percentages as prescribed by law right now would hold.
Yes.
The man who testified on behalf of the AARP expressed some concern that lottery funds have been used for DPW senior programs as opposed to some of the lottery traditionally funds. Can you speak to why this decision has been made in the past and if it would continue under a PMA?
There are some stakeholders that maintain the intent of the original lottery legislation was to fund home and community-based services versus using dollars for nursing home care. We at the Department of Aging see the continuum of care as one. It includes our most vulnerable citizens who are in nursing homes, and it includes those in their homes and communities. So I think that's what he was trying to express, that they have a desire that it be for more home and community-based services versus perhaps using those dollars to support people who are on medical assistance, thus through the Department of Public Welfare, who are in nursing homes.
You would continue that line of thought under a PMA?
We have to continue to support the whole continuum of care for our citizens, yes.
So when is the earliest that Camelot will start to manage, roll out Keno, and when can people start to see changes?
Transition will begin the moment that the agreement is executed. So sometime in the very near future, there will be a 6-month transition period. Upon that time, sometime in July, the Camelot as the manager of the Commonwealth's assets for growth initiatives will begin.
Start this year?
Yes.
Do you look at, is there any indication from the casino industry that this is an expansion of gaming? And has there been any conversation with the casino representation? Are you worried about potential lawsuits by the casino industry?
We think that the law is pretty clear, what authorities Department of Revenue has, what falls within the regulations of the state lottery law versus what is included and what the Gaming Act provides for. There is a bright line between lottery games and gaming. And no, we have not, so we really don't think there should be any confusion there. And we think we've got years of legal opinion on our side and the law. And no, we have not heard anything from. I have not anyway heard anything from the gaming community.
Do you have a clear picture of what kind of internet gambling we might see here in Pennsylvania? It was sort of vague during the hearing, no disrespect to the Camelot people.
Right.
I didn't get any idea what they were talking about.
Well,
what will you be able to do on the internet?
Well, what you'll be able to do on the internet, and is not included into their Camelot's revenue enhancement plans until 2015, I believe, is simply to buy a lottery ticket. A current lottery ticket of a game that exists would be able to be purchased. The plan is online. Of course, all age controls and other responsibility and social responsibilities that exist today will be taken into consideration. Now, the level of enhanced revenue from purchasing online is quite minimal, even over the course of 10 years, certainly over the course of the next 5 years. So we have to be very careful. Our current retailers are very important to the lottery, so there'll be quite a bit taken into consideration.
Likewise, it wasn't very clear as to how Keno would work. And then the fellow who was with the merchants who represented the retailers, I believe, indicated that the retailers wanted on that.
Right.
Do you primarily envision Keno being in taverns and clubs, or or with the retailers, or a mix of that
Well,
stuff?
the tavern and clubs is more typical when you look at other states and where Keno has been more popular, because it takes a little bit more time and it has frequent drawings. Again, Keno is a terminal-based game, clearly, as far as we're concerned, within the legal authority of the Department of Revenue and the state lottery law. Yes, we do. If a retailer is interested in also adding Keno, that would be something that would be taken into consideration and will be evaluated, just as we will be evaluating any new retailers as exist today and moving
Does
forward.
the administration retain control over that sort of thing, or does Camelot have total discretion as to how Keno and internet games are rolled out?
All licensing and quality control activities would remain with the Commonwealth.
Mr. Secretary, could you explain the distinction between I've heard about both terminal-based games and monitor-based games. Could you explain the distinction between these? A terminal is that sort of paper ticket versus a monitor is a video display? Or?
Well, Keno does have a video, I mean, you watch the game as to how it's played. But being monitor-based means that it's connected to the central computer system. The real difference, and I'd much prefer for you to review the legal language on the authorities that exist for the Department of Revenue, the legal language on what the lottery fund and its jurisdictions, or the lottery, as well as the difference between that and gaming. But when you buy a lottery ticket, you're paying $1, receiving a ticket. You then receive a consumer product for the purpose of trying to win a prize that's configured through the central computer system. A slot machine, for instance, video poker, which video poker is not being considered here at all, something the governor is against, is where you use a monetary denomination and make a bet against a machine. All right, it's quite a bit different. A slot machine and a terminal lottery game. That's hopefully a reasonably clear distinction between the two.
So I have two things. One, a follow-up on Laura's question. I didn't understand quite if employees are going to have a full year of employment after it's determined that they're not going to keep their job at the lottery, or if they'd have up to a full year of employment after their transition is figured out.
It could be either, and we have some flexibility in what we can do with the employees.
They're not guaranteed a year of employment after Camelot goes in as a
No,
manager?
but we would commit to make, in fact, we would commit any employee who doesn't want to take a job with the private manager, we would find another place for them in Commonwealth employment.
And then the second thing is Senator Vance asked if the contract with Camelot would be made public, and I didn't hear his answer. I understand the business plan is...
The contract has been public. I mean, the PMA that's been out there, that is the contract, and that has been public for 60 days or whatever it has been.
There will be no new information that the public doesn't have.
There will be the schedules that needed to be populated after the bid was provided. So in other words, there's a disentanglement plan, there's a transition plan, there's the employee transition plan. All those things came after the contract was developed, after the bid. So those things will be made public as well. But that's more detailed to the contract. But the actual contract itself is what it has been for the last 60 days.
Forgive me if I'm phrasing this wrong, but this Camelot firm, subsidiary headquartered in Delaware, what exactly, what taxes, state taxes would they be paying on this?
We required in the PMA that 80% of hours worked, employees, resources purchased, all had to be from Pennsylvania so that they would have nexus, they would be paying Pennsylvania taxes regardless of where they were based. And at the time that was written, we didn't know the organizational structure of all the bidders. Since that time, Camelot has filed their paperwork with the Department of State to become Pennsylvania, registered in Pennsylvania. So they were previously registered in Delaware as they were planning to try to get involved in consulting contracts and management contracts in a number of states. But they are committed and have filed their paperwork for Pennsylvania.
Is the contract executed executed when everybody except the Attorney General signs it, or is it's after the Attorney General signs it?
It is not fully executed until everyone signs it and it gets back to us, the administration.
That's when the 6-month period begins, the year period and all that. And on Keno, is it Camelot that will be determining how many, every 5 minutes there's going to be a drawing, or is that something the Commonwealth will determine, and how many numbers you pick? I mean, who controls the rules of the game?
It is the Commonwealth who makes all those big decisions on prize payouts and timing and all those kind of things. So we retain sort of all the major decision-making authority and work with the private manager to execute the decisions and the strategy.
Who else needs to sign this besides the governor, Camelot, and the Attorney General? Anyone?
The secretary? Secretary, his counsel, our Office of General Counsel, the Attorney General, our comptroller, and then it goes to the treasurer.
So this will be signed by the end of the week and in the Attorney General's hands next week for a 30-day review?
Theoretically.
I mean, that's what I'm gathering out of what you said, soon, within days, before Friday. Okay.
Yes.
So the guaranteed revenue, just make sure I'm getting this right, the guaranteed revenue from Camelot is $1.3 to $1.8 billion more a year for the first 10 years?
No, not a year. Over a 10-year period, by Camelot maintaining their average or their annual profit commitments, that level of new revenues versus what our dynamic models have been for projections for the lottery, that difference is about $1.2 billion over a 10-year period.
So with Camelot, how much will be coming in a month or a year?
Their bid document, which has been online for however many days now, shows the actual profit commitment that would go to senior programs every year. And that's where you see the 9.1% annual growth over the first 5 years, 5.8 over the first 10. And that's, like the Secretary said, $1.3 billion more than our projections show over the first 10 years of the contract.
Are there any outs in this contract? I mean, can one party or the other terminate it after 5 years, 10 years, or?
Yes. The Commonwealth holds a number of termination rights in the contract, and it's all spelled out in there. If we can terminate for performance, we can terminate for cause. There are a number of situations which would allow us to terminate, and we could terminate for convenience after three years. So comments that if they didn't make their targets over the first 3 years and they drew down that cash collateral, well, we would be in a position then that we could terminate the contract and not risk dipping into money we don't have, right? And then concurrently, the private manager has a termination right, but not till after 4 years. And both, then there's significant disentanglement provisions if either would choose to terminate for convenience.
Is there a need for the Commonwealth to retain a reserve in the lottery fund under private management? Is there a need for any reserve at all?
There may be, but what we can do now is, because we're shifting all that risk to the private manager, we can invest all those dollars in senior programs, and we don't have to maintain that $75 million balance that we have to date.
Mr. Carlin, a disentanglement clause for cause or not cause sounds a whole lot like a payoff. How much?
No. But what you have to do is figure out, okay, what assets have been purchased and depreciated, what bills are owed, what's already been paid out. So you have to. So the disentanglement provisions just provide a mechanism to sort all that stuff out. It's not just a payout to get rid of someone or get out.
Prior to the 3 years, there would not be a cash payment of some kind to Camelot, or there would be?
We essentially pay what they're owed based on expenditures they've made, that kind of thing. And there's a detailed process that you have to go through to figure out exactly what that number would be.
So there would be $75 million more to spend on senior programs now? Now, could that be done immediately, or does that have to just go in next year's budget and be authorized?
It all would have to be appropriated, and the secretary can talk about how you might want to do that, not all at once, over time. Those are discussions that will have to occur with the General Assembly.
We see the use of this money as essential. And to follow up on the question earlier, Laura, on home and community-based services and nursing homes, one of the governor's commitments with this is that home and community-based services, the additional revenue would go to home and community-based services where we can help the most Pennsylvanians via our mission of prevention to keep people in the community. And how we distribute the dollars among those on a waiting list right now for state-funded in-home services, how we help with the Meals on Wheels program, or home-delivered meals, how we help with protective services and help our area agencies on aging. There'll be the 4 areas, and we would budget out accordingly, according to what Mr. Tarline offered.
Yes.
There's some numbers this morning as well from Camelot about how many Pennsylvanians play per week. Were those numbers that they got from the Department of Revenue? And do you guys have a similar figure? I think it was somewhere between 10 and 30%.
Yeah, we've the lottery does many surveys, and yes, we have internal numbers, but much of what Camelot was discussing was their own conducted surveys as well. So they were using a combination of the two.
What do your numbers show?
I'd have to check that exactly. It's somewhere. It's certainly right within that realm of what was stated between 10 and 30%. Yes.
During the process to this point, which I take it began last April, did the administration at any point contract with outside counsel or lottery experts from other states? And if so, to what extent and at what cost?
I'm going to let Pete get into some details, but yeah, go ahead.
We did not contract with any, we contracted with outside counsel, DLA Piper, who I mentioned in my statement. They were the counsel for Illinois during their PMA. We had our financial advisor, Greenhill, as well, but we did not, and through our advisors in our process, researched what was going on in Indiana, New Jersey, and certainly studied in detail what was happening in Illinois.
And at what cost?
None yet. In other words, upon execution of the deal, we would pay a success fee to our financial advisor if it's executed. If not, then it's based on milestone payments, and it's a flat fee for our outside counsel and upon execution.
Ballpark, some kind of range?
If it was a milestone fee to our financial advisor, it would be around less than $1 million. If it's a success fee, that'll be determined after execution. And I don't know what our outside counsel fees would be.
To pay the consultants, Kroll, all 3. I thought there was $50 million put out by Camelot to pay for that.
So Camelot would pay for all of that. If the contract is executed, all transaction costs are paid by the bidder, Camelot. So the Commonwealth Lottery Fund would not pay for any of those transaction costs. All of those costs would be paid by the bidder, Camelot. Thank you.
There was a cap on $30 million. On
And it's not, we're not going to get there.
Is that correct then?
That's correct. There's a $30 million cap on all transaction costs, and it's going to be less than that.
Not for all 3, but for each one
Oh,
of
no,
the 3?
for total. It's going to
So
be,
what happens to that $20 million in the $50 million sum?
well, that's a bid security, so what's not used to cover transaction costs goes back to the bidder. And then, if it's executed, then we get $150 million. Pretty good deal.
Last question. So besides Keno and being able to buy a lottery ticket online in a few years, what other new games do you expect we'll see?
Well, outlined in Camelot's business plan, they've got a number of ideas, but it's very comprehensive, and it's primarily based around, frankly, evaluating closely what our current weaknesses are, and also having an understanding of what our strengths are. That's why this partnership will, in the end, really prove to be so significant for the Commonwealth. For instance, their plan is to expand the base of players. As we were talking about, our demographic population that regularly plays the lottery is quite a bit less. It's good, but it's quite a bit less than what Camelot has achieved elsewhere. They're going to work on that. We're going to get more people to play a little, rather than focus on a certain sector of individuals playing a lot. Also, some of the focus will be on terminal games. Terminal games happens to be the most profitable portion of the lottery sales, in the neighborhood of margins of 35%. The instant games have become quite popular over the last 10 years, yet they yield margins in the neighborhood of 25%. That's why in the end, we come down to the 30, 29, 28, but they feel that we can still keep our instant game playing at a high level, yet run in parallel a stronger terminal-based game. So, and set up marketing for the purpose of achieving those results. Over the past years, for instance, we had Gus the Groundhog. Gus the Groundhog was very appreciated by a lot of people, but the fact is Gus was selling low-end, the lower-end scratch-off games, the less profitable games. All right? We need to be focusing more on the higher profit games, which would make a lot more business strategic sense. Now, in the end, what matters here, what their business plan, it's important that's delivered, is the fact that we've got an increasing level of older Pennsylvanians, and now we will have, assuming the governor moves forward with execution of this contract, annual profit commitments, whereas the Department of Aging and the Lottery Fund will be assured of what those levels will be, and those levels will be over $1 billion more over the next 10 years than exists today. And that is what the governor's main focus is. That is why this began, so as the funding is there for older Pennsylvanians.
Thank you.